The Climate Action Reserve is the most experienced and trusted offset registry to serve the carbon markets. As more organizations look to combat climate change and support environmental projects with true integrity, they turn to the reserve to foster real solutions and reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. We are excited to kick off the second series of Carbon Connection and feature external partners with insights and expertise in particular climate sectors and topics across the carbon market. I am your host, Lauren Napuk, and thank you for joining us. Hi, welcome to our next episode of Carbon Connection. Today, we are speaking with Alexia Kelly, Managing Director of the Carbon Policy and Markets Initiative, or CPMI, at the High Tide Foundation. Alexia's work with the CPMI accelerates ambitious climate action and capital mobilization through robust rules and guidance for voluntary corporate action and disclosures, and by building the next generation of high-integrity carbon and environmental services markets. Today, we are speaking with Alexia about how to identify high-quality credits within the voluntary carbon market. Alexia, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. And Alexia, just to kick us off, what makes a high-quality credit, and what are the criteria for determination?
Thanks, Lauren. The basics of high integrity carbon credits have been relatively well understood for a long time now. This is not a new area of inquiry for the market as a whole, but I will say that I think we're seeing increasing convergence around what high quality looks like. So, generally speaking, high quality credits represent emission reductions, removals, or avoidance that are additional, which means that they wouldn't have happened without the incentive provided by the carbon market. That they are quantified using an independent third party approved baseline, that they're delivering permanent atmospheric benefit, and that they're not inappropriately claimed by more than one party. And then finally, that they were developed with a strong social safeguard framework and local community buy in. And that's an area that I think we'll talk more about. And there's a strong sense of the need to really do more, which is one of the reasons why we have been at the High Tide Foundation a primary supporter of the Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets, of which CAR and other entities have been involved pretty actively in over the course of the last now nearly 3 years, really looking to help develop definitions and approaches that apply broadly across the market, and that the various voluntary standards that exist today can utilize so that we can really move towards a more standardized and harmonized market.
Thank you so much, Alexia. That's really helpful to be able to intro us to this topic of high quality credits and understand why it's happening right now in the market and why there's so many different entities working on this as well. So, with the high quality credits, what are some features of projects that generate these high quality credits?
As I mentioned earlier, I think projects that generate high quality credits are significantly driven by the incentives provided by the carbon market. So, this concept we call additionality, and that delivers strong climate change mitigation impacts based on the high quality criteria we were just talking about. So, this concept of additionality is really actually quite important because what it enables us to do is draw that causal link between a project being implemented and the existence of the market, the purchasers of the mitigation outcomes. So, the strong climate change mitigation outcomes should really be at the top of the priority list as we think about engaging in this space more broadly. We know also, though, that carbon credit projects, whether they're restoring and replanting mangrove forests or protecting critical ecosystems such as tropical forests, provide really important benefits for local communities, biodiversity, climate resilience, et cetera. My last role professionally was in directing the Net Zero Plus Nature program at Netflix, where I oversaw carbon credit strategy and purchasing. And one of my favorite stories from that time was we were running an RFP and evaluating a bunch of projects and conducting diligence on them. And one of the project developers just mentioned offhand that a dryland forest restoration and protection project in Africa that we were looking at just happened to also protect the drinking water source for a city of nearly a million people nearby. So it's these types of community impacts and benefits that we need to get better at capturing and talking about, because these projects really are delivering life-changing impacts on the ground for a lot of communities. And I think we miss the forest for the trees as we're really thinking through and looking at how do we think about these markets as a whole, and how do we capture and evaluate those types of impacts. And as we're thinking about what defines a high quality credit, how do we wrap those additional considerations into that definition in a way that makes sense?
Absolutely. And I'm so happy you raised these examples because I think sometimes people don't realize these incredible additional co benefits that projects provide.
Mhm.
Like in your example, a million people having a protected water source is fantastic and is something that is being enabled because of our carbon market. And I really, yeah, appreciate that sentiment. And what is the importance of having only high quality credits available in the voluntary carbon market?
High quality credits really give buyers and investors confidence in the credits that they're purchasing. So, because carbon credits are an intangible commodity, which means that they really only have value insofar as policy is giving them value. It's not a ton of gold that we can weigh or a pork belly that we can measure and trade. So, the role of strong governance, transparency, issuance and tracking systems are all extremely important. And building those systems in a really robust and transparent way is essential to ensuring that we do have confidence in the commodities that are trading hands in the voluntary carbon market, in particular, just because of its voluntary nature. And so part of the challenge that we face is that there is no voluntary carbon market police or regulator. So it really is difficult to ensure that all actors are always acting in good faith. So the work of the Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets, and also just the, I would say, continuous improvement that's happening across the standard setting bodies, as well as the convergence and recognition of the importance of robust governance at the standard level, all play into making sure that, we really can say with a high degree of confidence that if you purchase a carbon credit on the voluntary carbon market, you can really feel assured and be comfortable with the notion that it is delivering the environmental impact that you are expecting it to deliver by spending your money and purchasing it.
That's really important, and I thank you so much for raising that as well because especially at the Reserve right now as an organization that is looking across all of these projects, we see buyers and sellers of credits really wanting to ensure that these credits are of high quality and integrity. So with this and dovetailing a little bit on your last response, Alexia, how does the voluntary carbon market ensure that these credits being used are of high quality and integrity?
So the role of the standard setting bodies like the Climate Action Reserve, like Vera, the ICBCM is kind of a arbiter of what right looks like more broadly, is really central to defining and implementing high quality across the market. So ensuring the public review and development processes for methodologies, setting consistent and predictable schedules for updating those methodologies, ensuring that those methodologies and protocols reflect the best available science. All of that is part and parcel of making sure that the credits that are being issued and used for voluntary purposes or otherwise really do reflect that high environmental bar. And in the voluntary carbon market, there's a variety of bodies that are playing that role. All of those are the core parts of the role of the standard setting bodies in general. That said, in the voluntary markets, we've seen really different interpretations of what right looks like when it comes to some of these key methodological decisions. And that's had a big impact, as we've seen play out over the past several months, on the public and media perception in the market, and made it really difficult for folks to understand what's going on underneath the surface in these markets. So, the fact of the matter is that the entire market really does need to do a better job at making things more transparent, more standardized, and more predictable across the board, so that we can make sure that when we're comparing different methodological approaches, we can compare apples to apples. and making sure that we're not comparing, apples to oranges in many instances because of a key emissions factor decision or underlying baseline projection assumption that a standard or methodology might be making.
That absolutely makes sense, and I think Climate Action Reserve is definitely moving in this direction as well, and being a part of these global conversations happening across these different standards, and really working to ensure that we have common definitions, like on things of additionality, so that we can ensure that a credit from us or a credit from whoever in the market is going to have this high value, but also be transparently accessible to anybody within the market as well. So I do appreciate that. And how do buyers know carbon credits benefit our environment and truly contribute to ambitious climate goals, as well as ensure that projects provide positive economic and social benefits in addition to these environmental benefits?
One of the real challenges we face as a market more broadly is that there isn't a harmonized view of what right looks like in the context of some of these additional things that buyers are particularly interested in, like positive environmental and economic benefits for local communities, equitable benefit sharing arrangements, et cetera. And so, really thinking through and acknowledging the fact that there is no one size fits all approach to this problem, but here again, increasing transparency and public disclosure of benefit sharing arrangements, as well as the increased pricing transparency, just as we have in every other publicly traded commodity market, is going to go a long way to helping the public and the media really understand the benefits that these projects are developing on the ground today. So, as they say, sunlight is the best disinfectant and increased transparency across the entire market. So, whether it's with respect to benefit sharing agreements or with respect to those key methodological decisions that help us understand the quality of an underlying credit, we know that increasing transparency broadly and increasing comparability and standardization across the existing standard setters is really, really critical for restoring and rebuilding trust in these markets and for really driving us towards scale, as we all recognize it's important and necessary moving forward. And I think one of the things that I see a lot is that there's a lot of talk about 2050 targets right now, but carbon credit projects themselves are some of the real bright spots in terms of delivering measured third party verified benefits today. So I think as this market continues and as these conversations continue, it's important to remember that carbon credit markets really went first in operationalizing and providing methodologies for doing that independent third party verification of a wide range of emission reduction project types and interventions across the economy. So we've really learned a lot, and we should be leveraging that and pointing to that in order to help us really build not just higher quality carbon crediting protocols, but better blueprints for doing emission reduction impact assessment more broadly across businesses and across the economy.
Thank you, Alexia. That's really inspiring to hear, I think, with this growing market, especially on the voluntary side, using the carbon market as a tool within our climate toolbox to be able to solve this crisis because emissions reductions can happen now with the use of high quality credits. So it's really fascinating to be able to understand that not only will these credits be impacting the environment, but it'll be helping businesses reach their own corporate targets and contribute to the economies and social aspects of communities on the ground. So that's really important to note. And we've talked a little bit about some of these standards and regulator type organizations that have been on the rise recently. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, there's this different type of group, which are the carbon credit rating systems, who've also been on the rise the past few years. And I'm wondering if you can share what the role of these rating systems have when assessing credit quality.
Yeah, thanks. I think that the rating agencies and approaches have both helped and further confused things. On the one hand, it's very helpful to have teams of experts assessing and analyzing the various methodologies that have been developed to date and starting to bring in some of those outside views and analysis to the market as a whole and to individual projects. So that's helped, I think, provide additional scrutiny and transparency overall to the market. But on the other hand, because there is no perfect way to say go back in time and relitigate baselines in an objective and irrefutable way, what's ended up happening is that the ratings agencies all disagree with one another. And what that's done is really add a lot more noise to what is an already incredibly noisy space. So I think having the integration of a lot of the services that the ratings agencies provide today, and I think some of the newer technology adoption and application that we're seeing them really pioneer in the context of remote sensing data and in the context of using a much wider variety of kind of machine learning and artificial intelligence driven algorithms and systems in order to do that big data analysis to help us land better and more rigorous inputs for baseline projections and better real-time monitoring of projects over time based on remote sensing data. There's a lot of innovation that's happening and being pioneered by the ratings agencies that I'm really excited to see get sort of wrapped into this next generation of standard setting bodies, methodologies, and approaches that we're working through over the course of the next couple of years.
Thank you, Alexia. I really like how you described that this is all part of the next generation because I think right now, with the market expanding the way that it is and evolving every day the way that it is and bringing in these new innovations, we are seeing new actors come in and be able to take the amount of data that we have out there and help us delve in and analyze it in new ways to helpfully improve the ways that we operate this voluntary market. So thank you for sharing that. And Alexia, what are some challenges that the market faces in ensuring the quality of carbon credits?
Overall, I think a key challenge is just going to be how we navigate this really pivotal time for the market. I've been working in carbon markets for my entire career in a variety of capacities in both the public and the nonprofit sector. So I started in 2006. And it's been really, it used to be there was a running joke that you would go to a carbon crediting conference and it would just be the same like 15 people talking to each other for a good 2 decades or, a decade. And now it's amazing because you go to these conferences and, we're back in the hundreds to thousands of people coming and the new ratings agency. We've got a huge amount of new money come in terms of venture capital and, the capital markets starting to sort of look around. And even the ICBCM was really a testament to, I would say, sort of the traditional financial markets peeking their heads over the parapet going, hey, there's this carbon market over there. And this is a pretty interesting idea because despite the challenges that the carbon markets have faced, there is no way we solve this problem in a capitalist economy absent a really robust and rigorous system for actually pricing the externality. Because that is the thing that enables this system to actually start factoring in those damages and those costs to the way in which we do business. And so, even though there have been challenges with the way in which the market has been executed, I'm actually more optimistic than ever that we're going to be able to get this market right and that we're going to be able to scale it in a way that is really going to deliver incredibly impactful outcomes, both for the climate and for the communities that these projects serve. It's just not a problem we're going to solve absent using markets. And so we just have to get this right. And I think we have more people at the table than we've ever had before and more technologies at the table than we've ever had before to really land this in a way that delivers the urgent environmental impacts that we know are so necessary.
Thank you so much, Alexia. I think you've really left us with an inspiring note of collaboration and positive thinking for the future of carbon markets. So I really appreciate all of your time today and all of the fantastic work that you are doing at the High Tide Foundation.
Thanks so much for having me, Lauren. Great to be here.